You only have one shirt and one pair of pants. Yes. I mean, these are my comfort clothes, so I tend to sit in them very often. But this is hot off of the other three. Um, the what of masculinity is that you are, the baseline is give. The second one is distortion, that there is a relationship in which you are distorted. You are holding all of your masculinity hostage because it translates how giving is supposed to be. And the third one is divinity, the know thyself. There's a divine nature to masculinity, to be the give aspect. So, this one, what is this one's baseline going to be? This one is going to be the kind of connecting of threads from the other three. The relationship of this one is more that all of these things have a common occurrence, which is that to give, right? That's the core of masculinity. So the core of masculinity is giving, and oftentimes we, as men, have the relationship where giving is a provider role. We are providing care, we are providing love, we are providing stability, we are providing support, we are providing financials. And the only reason why I'm saying all of that is because very recently, this country of the US has decided to go backwards in time and try to undercut all of the fundamental natures of letting people be sovereign, to own themselves, to own their responsibilities, and to take care of themselves. Instead, trying to reinforce this provider role that must be prevailed over by men, when in a relationship all this does is build resentment, a desire for control, a distorted reality where the responsibility once again falls on top of your shoulders and you have to be the one to lift this burden all on your own. Sisyphus. But we're not getting to the idea that one must imagine that Sisyphus is happy, because Sisyphus is not happy. Sisyphus is being tortured, for one, and for two, if you're being tortured for all of eternity to roll a rock up a hill, you're never going to be happy. Three, that is a Greek. Yeah, it's a Greek individual who was punished by the gods by constantly needing to roll a boulder up a hill, if you did not know. And yeah, his story is tragic. Because the boulder always rolls back downhill. He never gets it to the top. Hence the nature of torture created by gods, by the way. They weren't meant to be kind at all. Anyway, getting into meat and potatoes and less in the... I mean, this one too... it is, like, it leans credence, because, again, I was talking about how military is kind of a mess in the last one, and that's its own bowl of worms, but the reason why all of these things are connected, the distortion and divinity are connected to this, is that early on, humanity had tribes. Tribes usually had different roles and different societal demands of itself and of its citizens. Early on, there was a lot of psychedelics and a lot of experience with psychedelics, so their relationship and understanding changed and had different dynamics underneath them. And because of this change and these varying dynamics in the tribe, they always had to understand each other and come to an understanding about, who are you? What is your real role? And there is always this, because it is divine, right? There's this calling to understand yourself, to know who you are. So there would be shaman, there would be people who would stoke the fire, create this invitation to come on out, it's time to know yourself. And because of that, there were people who became warriors. There are people who became lovers and poets and writers and painters and craftsmen and all of these other things. They weren't decided by a society like we have now. They weren't decided because we have all of these options available to us, and now you can just pick and choose what kind of career or job or hobby that you really want to get into that draws your interest. It was through shamans, it was through spiritual visions, it was through this process of uncovering something deeper. Again, the nature of divine. There is a version of you, of masculinity, of femininity, of every one of us. I speak of myself as well. That you have something that tethers you to something that is very powerful, that is very potent, and it's something that only you can give. So this is the potency of masculinity, the power to give. Because we give life to ideas, we give life to many different things, which is why specifically I want to use give, because it becomes universal. Weirdly enough, even though I'm talking about men and there could be women watching this, it doesn't matter, because we all are possessed of the mental genders. There is always a masculine emotion that's taking place, which is very funny. I'm going to get into that. And there is a feminine thought that is coming to match the frequency of that masculine feeling. So why masculine feeling? Not feminine feelings. Feminine is all about feeling, right? As a man, I know my most sensitive part, my family jewels, are outside of my body. They are easily hittable, they are easily able to get squeezed or anything, and they are very sensitive. The nature of this doesn't surprise me. As somebody who has thought about this a few times, the irony isn't lost on me that men are considered to be, supposed to be, this rock hard, unapologetically dominant force, right? Like, even in the animal species, that weakness is still the same. Our most precious and our most, I'm not going to say most valued in that way, but our ability to reproduce as human beings, that's very valuable, is on the outside, right? Like, yes, you can push them in and stuff like that. There's a whole dynamic. No, you don't have to know this. No, this wasn't in the homework. And no, I'm not going to go into that much further than I have to. But there is a relationship in which our most sensitive organ is outside of our body. Something that is valuable to not only ourselves, but valuable to the increase of our society, numbers-wise, and the production of our own genetic coding being passed on. Those things are valuable in and of themselves, because otherwise you're a very unique species. Every person is a unique species because you translate DNA the way that you did in order to get the form that you have, so on and so forth. You're a very unique blend of varying parts of your own species web. There are so many different family members. You are a unique translation of all of that information. And the potency of that, right? There's a potential and a potency in all of those things. You're attractive to a very specific group of people. You're attractive to, again, very specific people because of the way that you have designed your body, your vessel. Most of us think of it as like you're crafted by God and all of these other things, because that's the prevailing theory, that's the comfortable one. There's science as well, which is just your random amalgamation of things that you decided would be cool, and your DNA decided to build itself in this way because, for whatever reason, we don't really have an answer, but, science, cool. I mean, that's the same as somebody sculpting you. it's a yes and situation here. I'm a big fan of improv. So yes and all of these factors, but there is a potency in the fact that you've created yourself, just like I've created myself, to have a very specific voice, to carry myself a very specific way, to appear a very specific way, to be as I am. I have, in some way, I can take ownership of that. That is the difference. That is the importance of what old tribal life was about. You can take ownership of what is you through psychedelics, through plants, through ayahuasca, peyote, various mushrooms. There is this ability to tap into a fundamental nature that we all have, which is something that I talked about in the last video, but this one's kind of like picking out pieces of information that I remember. In this case, it's you are connecting with parts of your brain that were synaptically cut off from you. The idea of acid coming back into your system and stuff like that isn't true. It's just when you go through a psychedelic rabbit hole, you tend to kick open these synaptic doors again, and they have access to parts of your brain that you didn't know you had access to, which allows images and memory to come back. Oftentimes, it's not necessarily the most comfortable because people who talk about having reoccurrences or those memories reoccur, they're all a part of the experience that that person was having in their psychedelic journey, likely to understand themselves and to connect with themselves on a deeper level. A lot of mine has to do with discomfort, but that's natural. It's very natural to be uncomfortable in yourself, around yourself. There are different things about ourselves that we don't necessarily accept, so the insecurity can be there. And the relationship therein of life is sort of something that you're giving to, is that underneath all of that stuff, there's ego death and there's near-death experiences, which is kind of moronic of a statement, being near it, because technically that person does die for a certain period of time. Scientifically speaking, they're brain dead for like a certain period of time. Their brain isn't sending any signals. There is nothing going on, but the assumption is that all of that creates a picture, an illusion, a hallucination, whatever, in order to make themselves feel comfortable about all the different experiences people have had. They're all interesting. They're all very cool. I'd recommend looking into them just at least once out of curiosity, rather than out of like needing to know what happens after you die. Because we don't all have just a one-off death. Some people are here to do more than just die. And I say that for everybody. I'm not saying that as like a very callous thing. I'm saying it is more of like when it comes to near-death experiences, it is this occurrence in which they are told that it's not their time yet, and they end up coming back. They do come back to their bodies. Their body is dead. We really want to bring that home because, again, the science makes it seem like they're still in their body and they're still there. Oftentimes, in the near-death experiences and the way that they describe them, they are not in their body. They are not near them at all. So the potency of all of these things together is that when you're going through a tribe, when you are experiencing psychedelics, when you are imbibing, because teenagers imbibe, right? They go through alcohol, they go through drugs, they experience something at some point. And it might not be when they're teenagers, it might be later on. They have like another crisis, midlife crisis, that they start to question who they think they are. That is important because it's inevitable. The reason why it happens now is because we don't have the tribe mentality where there's something innate about you and we want to draw out that potency. That is going through all of the distortion and getting back to the base of why that's important. And it's the divinity within you, that there is something divine that is being drawn out of you. Education actually has two different root words. It's educere and educare. educare is the idea that you can be molded. Educare is that there's something in you that can be drawn forth to educate you on. It's actually how education systems functioned for, I'm not entirely sure the period of time, but there was a period of time before we got our modernized set education where you're just learning these subjects and you kind of just go through it, and that's your education. There was education where it was more about finding things that were fundamentally things that you really cared about and built off of that and got you into higher scholarships, higher ideals, higher academia based on things that were a natural fit for you, more or less. That's why we had a lot more philosophers, scholars, and varying patron of the arts, because they were learning a much different form of education than we have today. But all of these things are interconnected because all of these things are a nature of give, right? You're giving of yourself a divine purpose. You're giving of yourself the ability to experience your distortion without taking it seriously. You're experiencing a masculinity that is about giving, to give. It is its own natural essence to give. When you give of your words, when you give of your presence, when you give of your time, you are giving of it. Or it is distorted, you feel like you're providing it, you feel like you're managing it, you feel like you have to control it more, you feel like you have all of these things that you have to do. So all of these things are aligned to this very basic principle of give. When you are at this nature of give, there is a lack of entitlement over what you are giving. And it's not because you don't have agency or anything. It's mainly out of fostering a new relationship with the nature of giving. That when you are giving, when you're showing up to give for the sake of itself, then you're much more coherent. You're giving of something that allows other people to hear you, to resonate with you, to show up for themselves. And all of these forms, all three of them, are important to each other. Another saying from William Whitecloud, but it's based on the Sufis, and also Desi, is your distortion, right? This volatile, distorted state is your vessel, your physical vessel, your brain, the thing you can see in space, physical space. It's on the same vibrational wavelength as your soul, as your spirit, specifically your spirit. Everything that is divine about you is exactly the thing that is distorted before your eye. It's the thing that doesn't seem to work out with you, the distortion that exists, right? It's through the distortion. This too is also another saying from both of them, that the dysfunctional personality is the gateway to the soul, the whole, the complete. That's how I'm going to use soul from now on. So you also get a new definition of soul. Soul is your entirety. It's your physicality, it's your mental, it's your emotional, and it's your spiritual bodies, all encapsulated into one. The spirit can never break. The physical body can, and it does break down over time. Same too with mental. Emotional's kind of on the side of spiritual. It's always there, but it also has its own fluctuations and dynamics to it. So all of these things kind of build the baseline of what I'm going to be getting into when it comes to distorted masculinity. Not only through stories, but also through imagery, different things that I share, different ways of exploring the subject. Because it's fascinating, right? It's fascinating that we have two different sexes. It's fascinating that they have a dynamic that is so universally the same. So looking forward to getting into more of this in the next video, which is probably going to get recorded right after this one. I'm just having a really good time talking about it and exploring it and getting into it because it's very important. Especially now, it's very important. So I'll catch you later.